Mayron. Welcome to Journey of an Aesthete podcast.
Hi.
I'm going to say a little introduction first, and then we'll launch into the discussion.
Okay.
I am so overjoyed to have you on our show for so many reasons. It's not just one reason. Your career is really nothing short of extraordinary.
My God.
I think I first became aware of you at the age of 10. 10 years old, when I saw in New York City, I went to see Girlfriends. With my parents. At 10. In fact, I liked the movie so much, I went back to see it again. I think like a year. I think when it was in. I think it played. Didn't it play again? Wasn't it re-released a year later, or something like that? And that was one of the movies that really changed my life. I mean, that got me thinking, about movies being more than just an entertainment, more than just something to pass the time. Mm-hmm. And so that was really, really something. And also I'm writing a book on the 70s and movies of the 70s. And two of, I have a list of the 100 greatest movies. A lot of people have lists like that. But two movies that you're in are on that list. And one of them is...
Really?
Yes, one of them is Girlfriends. And the other one, believe it or not, is Car Wash.
Yeah, well, Car Wash is a 70s icon.
That it is. I mean, I hope we could talk about some of this stuff, but I want to say immediately, usually on my show I do a linear chronology, and I'll talk to the artist about their origins and what inspired them and their creative process. And it's usually in kind of a linear form. But I think in your case, I have to immediately talk about things you're doing now because they're so good and there's so much to say about them. So, for example, I just watched Snapshots.
Oh, wow.
Which I love. I mean, Snapshots is a terrific, terrific movie. And that's only a couple years old. And then, of course, there's Gracie and Frankie. And there's Jane the Virgin. And so there's all this stuff in the present that's just so good. So I don't know whether to go back or go to the present, or we'll try to. You can see the.
Yeah. Well, we might lose. You might lose people if you go back because then nobody was alive then that's listening to this.
Oh, I don't know. Also, yeah, because I wanted to ask because see, the interesting thing is you. I believe that you're a direct link to a certain approach. I believe to directing actors. A kind of a specialness or a special regard, and I think it, and I think it's basically. You might want to talk about how that all came to be because I know that Paul Mazursky fits in there somewhere. Because when I think about a movie like Harry and Tonto, which is one of my all-time favorite movies, and I think about that scene with you and Art Carney in the motel, or you're just driving along with Zero Mostel. And then I think about your scenes with Eli Wallach and Vivica Lenfers and Girlfriends. And I think about things I see on actually Gracie and Frankie and actually Glow. I see similarities. I mean, I see similarities. And I thought, since you're the expert, what is this gift that you folks are good at in terms of, touching people through storytelling and working with actors? You know what I'm saying? There's something unique about that. Mm-hmm. I don't know what comes to your mind, but I know you were there.
What do you mean? You mean being an actor that's directing?
No, I don't just mean that. I mean an approach to storytelling, an approach to filmmaking, whether in film or television, that honors the actor or honors, I guess, the present moment, I think.
Uh-huh.
And I think that you're really a big part of that. And I think that that's something people don't often talk about. And anyway, that's just one issue. There's many other things. I mean, there's probably more, prosaic things like working in television versus theaters, and
mm-hmm.
Because you were in Rhoda, for example, and you were in some made-for-TV movies, and so I mean, to me, it's all the same actually. But you could start from the beginning if you want, just wherever you want to pick, whatever comes to your mind or what's most important to you, I guess. So.
Mm-hmm. Well. And we can just jump in right now?
Sure. Just whatever, yeah.
Yeah. Well, when I was 9, I was taking notes in a notebook about wanting to be a vet and sort of documenting all kinds of horse diseases and dog diseases. And then when I was in 8th grade, I grew up in suburban Philadelphia, and our class took a trip, like a 7-hour, 8-hour bus ride up to Stratford, Connecticut to see the American Shakespeare Festival do a production of A Midsummer Night's Dream, which we had been studying in class. And this English actor named Cyril Richard was playing Bottom in the play.
Wow.
And I was just blindsided and gobsmacked or whatever by seeing this production. And on the bus ride home, I memorized Puck's last speech in Midsummer Night's Dream and said, I'm going to be an actor. That was it. That just...
So you knew that was an idea in your mind because you were moved by this production. And so you knew immediately this is what you wanted to do.
Yeah, well, what happened was we had to do, for extra credit in English class, we had to act out. We were asked to act out the interlude in Midsummer Night's Dream, which is a play within a play. Mm-hmm. And it's played by like these characters called the Mechanicals, and they're all men. So I was playing, and the men in Shakespeare's time played women.
Right.
So I was playing, it's a story of Pyramus and Thisbe, a little love story. And I was playing Thisbe, which basically would have been a man playing a woman, but I was a girl playing a man playing a woman.
That's fantastic.
So
actually.
I started out with a very complicated role.
Yeah.
And it was pure comedy and pure like physical comedy, like shtick. And I did some really stupid, funny stuff when I acted it out in class. And when we went to the theater to see real, professional actors do it, we were way up in like the nosebleed section. The stage was like as big as a postage stamp if you were looking at it. But when they got to the interlude, these professional actors, they did some of the funny stuff, and a couple of the things they did were what I had done.
Oh, wow.
And that blew my mind. I was like, wait, how could I have, and it's Shakespeare, which is like just poetry, and, it's like, how could I have pulled the same stuff out that they did? And that kind of blew my mind. So it was a little bit of an affirmation along with just watching them and seeing how much fun they were all having. So I, talked to my parents when I was in 11th grade, and, you're applying for colleges.
Yeah.
I said to them, we were lower middle class, and we didn't, if you're going to college, that was going to cost money. And I said, an actor doesn't need to have a college. You don't need a college degree to be an actor. Nobody's looking for your diploma,
Mm-hmm.
So, and I also loved photography, and I also loved writing. And, I auditioned for NYU, Boston University, Carnegie Mellon. They all had like the best acting programs, and then back up Temple University, Penn State, some other schools. Mm-hmm. And I got in everywhere academically, but I did not get in. Boston was only accepting 15 kids, and apparently I was number 16. So they said, if anybody drops out, we'll call you. NYU only took 12, and I wasn't one of the 12. And Carnegie Mellon took a small amount, and I wasn't picked either. But there was they accepted me academically, like if I wanted to go to the School of Education, but I didn't want to be a teacher or get a teaching degree. I wanted to be an actor. So there was also a professional school in New York called the American Academy of Dramatic Arts.
Oh, yeah.
And that was a 2-year program. You also auditioned for that, but you were only a third of the class was asked back for the second year.
Okay.
So, I made a deal with my parents. They said, okay, look, we will, if you get in to the first year, they said, we'll pay for it.
Oh, wow.
And, if you don't get asked back, then you can go to college. You can go for photojournalism or journalism. That's what I was going to do.
Yeah.
But if they think you've got any talent, then they'll ask you back for the second year, and then you can just see how that goes. So that was sort of the deal I made. And I auditioned. What I didn't realize was most kids went there after 4 years of college. So I was going right out of high school. So I was like one of the youngest in my class.
Yeah.
And I also didn't realize that basically if you had the tuition money, they took you the first year. Was the second year.
Oh, okay.
Like the other colleges, they weeded everybody out right off the bat. This school weeded them out after a year. So we had... basic, dance classes, Shakespeare, all kinds of fencing, all kinds of different stuff for the theater arts. And I was asked back the second year. So but the advantage of being in the second year is each student was put into 4 plays, and you were guaranteed a lead in one of them. And who came to see the plays? Well, everybody, all the first year and senior kids, but also talent agents, casting directors, managers, people in New York City that were looking for talent, young talent. So I was picked up along with 3 other kids in my class. Peter Weller, who became RoboCop, he was one of them.
Well, Peter Weller is a wonderful actor.
Yeah, and he's also been directing now too.
He's also a jazz pianist. A lot of people may not know that, but that's a whole other topic.
So anyway, so Weller and I, we were in the same class at the American Academy, and we were picked up by this manager named Bill Tresh. And so Bill had his office like on East 30th Street in Manhattan, downstairs from Marion Doherty's office. She at the time was the big casting director in New York. Juliet Taylor, who's just retired, cast all of Woody Allen's movies, Juliet was working with her. So they sent me up. I was 21 now. And actually, I went on the road. What would have been my 3rd year of college, I went on the road with Godspell and played at a bus and truck and national company. So I actually played a whole lot of universities all around the country, and then Hawaii, and we ended up at the Greek Theater in L.A.
Wow.
But then I came back to New York, which was the beginning of what would have been my 4th year of college, and I was set to meet Paul Mazursky, the head manager, and that's how I got cast in Harry and Tonto, which was my first movie when I was 21.
Wow. I mean, I have to, do you mind hold that thought? I have to ask you a couple of technical questions because, again, I'm not a savvy as to how, these schools work and everything. What period of time would this have been? I guess it would have been like 1970 or 71, I would guess.
Well, I graduated high school in 70, so I started the academy fall of 70, and I graduated the academy spring of 72. I did Godspell 72 to 73, like that fall to the following fall, and then did Harry and Tonto the beginning of 7. It came out in 74, I think. Or
it did, yeah. I love Harry and Tonto. That's one of the movies I actually had memorized. Everybody needs an anchor in life. You, me, just everybody. Anchor made this whole show possible. I'm immensely grateful to them. You too can use Anchor to make your own shows and create your own vision. Download the Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Thank you. Part of the reason is that I write about it extensively in this book I'm working on. But just for listeners who may not know or remember, although I think they should, talk a little bit, if you don't mind, about Mazursky's gifts as a director. Because it seems to me he's somebody that was really gifted at making a film and gifted with actors. And his output was, I'm just a big fan of his. And so anything you could share about, what he was like on set or what made his sets unusual or different or...
he was amazing because he invited me when we got out to Los Angeles. The film was shot in New York and then in Chicago and then
it's a road movie.
Sedona, Arizona, and then in California. And he let me stay with him and his family and his kids.
Wow.
In Beverly Hills. In fact, when he cast Molly Ringwald in what did he cast her in? The Tempest?
Yeah, The Tempest. That's John Cassavetes. Yeah. He
said that she reminded him of me, another young redheaded actress. I remember he said that. But Paul, he was a wonderful actor, amazing writer, funny guy, always telling jokes, loving, just really so dear. And he just let the actors, it's like he told me something. When I was 21, I was on the set, and I had a 35mm camera. And I was always, because I had also loved photography. My father put a camera in my hand when I was 9, so I was always taking pictures growing up. And I had a camera, 35 millimeter camera that I had saved up for, and I took the 50 millimeter lens off the camera and bought a 24 millimeter and a 200 and shot with those for years. And I would always, on the set, it was an opportunity to learn. I mean, there's no better place to learn or ask questions than on a set, because everybody's so happy to share what they know or have some kid asking them a question. And so I was there standing by the camera operator one day, and Paul came up to me. I'll never forget this. He said, "You know, Melanie, you could have the best cameraman in the world. You could have the best screenplay in the world. You could have the best costume designer, and you could have the best production designer. And you could have the best director, and you could have the best director of photography. But if you didn't cast the lead right, if you didn't cast it right, all the best of all those people, they mean nothing."
He was right.
And I never forgot that, because what's in front of the camera, you know, it's the actors that you picked. It's not everybody else. You know, you see their work, but it's sort of by osmosis that you see it, because it all goes into the storytelling. But it's the soul or the spirit of that actor that's on screen.
Absolutely. This is the quality I'm so happy to hear you put it this way, because this is kind of, you're expressing it much better than I did. I was just kind of introducing it in more of a clunky way. But it is a spiritual thing, and I really think that Mazursky has that in his films, whether it's Moscow on the Hudson.
He totally has it. I mean, casting Art Carney in that role, and Ellen Burston. I met Ellen, you know.
Oh, wow.
In that when I was 21, and we've been friends ever since. I cast her in my first movie, The Babysitters Club. She played Mrs. Haberman, and got a whole new, you know, short little fan base. Short meaning young kids.
Well, that's another thing, is you were getting to work with the best people. And so that's really it's real great fortune if you're working with Eli. Well, that's a little bit later, but Burston, not much later. But Ellen Burston and Larry Hagman are both in Harry and Tonto, and of course isn't Herbert Burkoff in that?
Yeah.
Do you mind talking a little bit about him and his studios, or does that get too far off topic? Or
I never went to HB Studios. I studied with what happened after Harry and Tonto. Interestingly enough, I got a letter from Ellen Burston, who had seen it at a screening, and she said I had a gift, and she was going to give me a year with her teacher, Lee Strasberg, a master class. It was a really expensive, beautiful gift that she was giving me to study with Lee. Wow. So that was, the Lee Strasberg Institute. So I didn't study with Herbert, and I wasn't on the set when they shot those scenes on the Upper West Side in New York. So I didn't know him, or but I did get to study with Lee Strasberg because of
wow, Ellen that's amazing. I know it's a lot
because of Ellen.
Well, it's in Ellen Burston. I mean, is there anything that comes to your mind when you think about Ellen Burston, who's like one of the greatest living actresses, bar none? What comes to your mind about the way she either approaches a character, or approaches a scene or a set, or just anything that pops into that you think of? I mean, I'm sure you have some stories about that and about. Well,
I don't know Ellen's approach to the work. I mean, she's just very much there, and who she is or who the character is. You know, much like probably when you see Meryl Streep. You know, I mean, Ellen is amazing, and God, I think The Exorcist came out. Well, when Harry and Tonto came out, Art Carney won the Oscar for Best Actor.
That's right.
And Ellen Burston won the Oscar that year for Best Actress in Alice Doesn't Live Here Anymore.
Yeah, that was quite a year.
So my first movie that I acted in.
Yeah.
I had scenes with the Best Actor Academy Award winner and the Best Actress Academy Award winner.
Yeah.
It's like what a way to arrive in the business.
Yeah. Wow.
That
is something
amazing.
So you said it's about being present into the character, and I guess this is something that I guess you've used your whole life, and I'm sure it plays a role in your directing and producing and everything else. But to somebody who is a novice or somebody that doesn't really know what that is it something you just take with you, or is it a combination of the script or just your own experience? It's hard to...
the reality is, in these days, it's not like you're going to get to play a part that you wouldn't be cast for. Actors today and actors, when I was starting out, you were cast based first off on how you looked.
Right.
If you look right for the part,
Yeah.
That's how you were cast. It was like you're not going to be cast in a role that you'd never be cast in. Or they would never believe that you, in your physical body and your age and whatever weight you are, whatever it would be. So they start out casting you for basically kind of who you are, and then you can make a background, like another background of what the character was, if you have to speak in a different way, and get a vocal coach, and then you start building the character. But for the most part, all of us these days are getting cast as kind of who we are. I mean, Meryl Streep has gotten to play lots of different kinds of roles. Ellen has too, but it's rare, I think, when that happens.
It's interesting. So you're saying that in the production process, or I guess pre-production, there's an attempt to try to get somebody that's already like who the creators imagine the character to be, in some kind of direct fashion.
I mean, look, if it's like the football quarterback in high school senior year, you're going to have somebody in mind.
Yeah,
we already have that person, and then people are going to come in that kind of look like that, and then you just pick the best actor. They're not going to take a little skinny, short boy to play that part, or they're not going to. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely,
they're going to pick a well-built guy, and
if you're doing Brian's son, you're gonna hire James Caan, and that you're not gonna obviously.
Yeah, so they'll look, but they'll cast for somebody that they think will look the part. But a lot of times, people don't know. These people that hired don't have any idea who they're going to cast, and then somebody walks in, and it's just like, oh my God, that's who it is. When I was casting my first movie for Columbia Pictures, which was the Babysitters Club, we were casting all the girls. They saw 4,000 girls across the country, and we narrowed it all down, but we didn't have the lead. And we had everybody. Ellen was in it too, and Peter Horton, who played my old boyfriend in 30-something.
That's right.
And we had Rachel Lee Cook, which was her first big thing. We had Larissa Olenek. We had a wonderful cast, but we didn't have Christy. And Sissy Spacek is an old friend of mine. Sissy was with Bill Tresh when I was 19 and 20, and she was about the same age. And Sissy had a little girl, and Skylar was in, 11 or 12. And her nephew, Sissy's nephew, was working with me out in L.A., kind of like my assistant. And Stephen mentioned that Skylar was doing all the musicals in school. I said, really? He said, yeah. So it was fax machines then, not email. We faxed Sissy and her husband Jack in Virginia, the Pages, and they did a videotape with Skylar on it, and Sissy was reading off camera. So you had an Academy Award winner giving her the lines. And, a cat jumped on her lap when she was saying her lines, and she just, petted the cat and then took it off her lap. I mean, it was just all so natural. And Jack had to drive the videotape to FedEx in a snowstorm, and they sent it out to me, and I got it like the next day. I remember I put it in my videotape machine, and it started, and as soon as I saw her, just like 5-10 seconds in, I started to cry, and I said, we've got our Christy.
Wow.
I mean, there she was, you know, and I called the producers and I said, we've got her. And they picked up the tape and they sent it all around and we cast Skylar Fisk. So, you know, a lot of times you just don't know till you see them and then you go, that's it.
So you say you don't, so it's like you don't know until you do know. In a
That's
way.
right. And it's
Yeah.
so clear. It's so clear.
Huh. I love that. I love that film, Babysitters Club. There's so much to talk about. I'm gonna go back a little bit into the kind of the mid to late '70s. So you're starting to work a lot, and you're doing now. I want to mention Hustling because Jill Clayburgh's in that.
Well, that was my second job with
Lee Remick and Jill Clayburgh
and Joe Sargent directed it. He had done Pelham 1, 2, 3.
Yep.
And it was about prostitution on the streets of New York and 8th Avenue because the 70s, that there was a lot of prostitution around Times Square and everything.
Right.
And then right after Hustling, I got Car Wash, I did Girlfriends, and then I was also cast around the same time playing opposite Vanessa Redgrave, playing her best friend in a movie. It was a CBS special, and it is now on Netflix for everybody, called Playing for Time.
I love that movie. Everybody listening to this podcast, go watch Playing for Time. It's anyhow, go on. Just plug it in.
Yeah, it's on Netflix right now. It's a 2-hour movie, and Arthur Miller wrote it. Mm-hmm. And Daniel Mann directed it, who has done a lot of amazing films in the 50s and 60s. Mm-hmm. And it was about playing for time to live, about the women's orchestra in Auschwitz during World War II. And there's a scene where Vanessa and I are sitting naked with our arms around our breasts, and they're shaving our heads. Mm-hmm. And that was for real happening. They had 3 cameras going at once, and we were acting it and getting our heads shaved on camera. So that was a wild experience. My hair took 2 years for my hair just to come back in some sort of a short hairdo. Wow. And then I was auditioned for Costa Gavras with that short hairdo and got a starring role in a movie called Missing, starring Jack Lemmon and Sissy Spacek and John Shea and myself. And that was another really, it's like I got in all these movies at the time that seemed to be so political. Missing was about the coup.
I love Missing.
Allende. Yeah, in 1974 in Chile, Santiago, Chile.
Yeah, it's about Allende, and every movie you're mentioning is like a great movie, though. Like you're batting a hunt. You're batting. I mean, Missing. I think that's one of Costa Gavras' best pictures, actually. And I think, he was nominated for awards. He won an Oscar for the screenplay.
Yeah. Jack Lemmon was nominated. Sissy was nominated. Mm-hmm. No, it was up for a lot of Oscar nominations, and it was the only time that the government denounced a movie ever in history. Mm-hmm. But it pointed a real finger at our government and stuff that went on there, because the scuttlebutt was that the coup was backed by the Americans.
Yeah.
And it's about just for everybody, it's about Charlie Horman, who was living in Santiago with a bunch of other Americans, expats, and they were living there, and they were skiing in the Andes and just kind of having a blast. And they had a political paper that they were printing, and the coup happened, and a whole bunch of young American men disappeared. Mm-hmm. And the father comes down from New York. So Jack Lemmon plays his father, who comes down with his wife, who Sissy played, to look for him. Mm-hmm. And I played a visiting friend of theirs, Terry Simon, who was a photographer who was visiting, and was the last person that was seen with Charlie. You know, so it was a true story. We met all the real people afterwards, but it was amazing to be a part of that film.
I mean, I love that film for so many reasons. I mean, we could so the thing I like about, I think it's Gavras's gift, and I think it's everybody there, is how human that movie is. So in a way, the audience of that film it's kind of brilliant on Garvis's part because you sort of experience the film partly through Lemon's eyes.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
also,
what he did, I think one of the reasons they won the screenplay won an Academy Award was the structure of the movie. Mm-hmm. Just how you were beginning to talk about our interview, like starting with how I began and then going all the way to where we are now, which is like a linear way of telling the story. Mm-hmm. He didn't do it that way.
That's right.
It's like, let's say a story goes from A to Z, okay? He began the movie around K, L, or M. Mm-hmm. So the movie starts, you don't know who the people are, you don't know what's happening, and then it goes from like the middle of the alphabet to Z, and then it starts back from A. And then you start seeing, what happened before. So the storytelling is kind of out of order. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the things, the structure of the film, I think that was so unique about it.
Yeah, but the structure...
It goes with what you just said about seeing it kind of through Jack's eyes. Like once the father comes, then you're going back and you're seeing what had happened or imagining what could have happened.
Well, there's two things going on in that movie. You're seeing it through Jack Lemmon's eyes, but what the movie does that I love is that it also reminds you of the other people in his life, like Sissy Spacek, the daughter. And so the film is always going back to those characters in the context of the narrative. So it accomplishes these two things. You're getting a story of this really awful thing our government did in this country, but you're getting a human scale of it because of how he I think it's how he directs the actors, and so it's all of it working together. But it's very, very effective, and I sort of feel that it kind of, I just watched Snapshots in an interesting way, which is a movie I love. Everybody should go out and see Snapshots. So,
it's on Amazon, $3.99.
$3 Snapshots, but Snapshots works in a similar way because
you're right.
Yes, because there's a political dimension to Snapshots. But it's also, I don't know how to talk. But it's also a sort of an ensemble drama about family and about these three generations. And when you're done with that movie, you're a changed person in a small way. Something. It's very hard to talk about. I think it is a structure thing. But I think it's also the way you work with the actors. I think it's that too. So I guess you need the structure, but you also need that commitment to the actors. And then when you put the two together, it can really move an audience and really change. I think it can change minds. Actually, the film can do that. The film can do that.
Wow. I was very proud of Snapshots. I mean, the budget of that movie was $490,000. It was nothing. Huh. And we had one camera. We had 15 days. And
that's amazing because that film looks so good. It's so well photographed, and the score. I really like the score, and I don't know. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, I pulled a lot of people that I knew together for that. David Michael Frank did the score. He did the Babysitters Club. He did this movie Toothless with Kirstie Alley that I did for The Wonderful World of Disney. I worked with David whenever I could hire him. So it was really special. Yeah, I'm glad you saw Snapshots. Wow, I'm very proud of that film.
Yeah, and also the way you treat the two different eras is really intelligent as well, because there are many films that try to do period things, but they're not always so successful with it. And your film is successful, like 1960 and then 2018. It's a real. I think you really do that really well. The back and forth.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, 1960 to 66, and then basically the present. Yeah. How the past imbibes the present.
That's right. I guess that's one of the things the movie's about, I suppose. But do you mind talking a little bit about Piper Laurie or Brooke Adams?
Yeah, well, Brooke is an old friend. Brooke was in Car Wash with me. That's when I first met her. And she played the mother in the Babysitters Club. She played Christy's mother in the Babysitters Club.
Yeah.
And she's just a good friend. And I she plays Piper Laurie's adopted daughter. Piper's been nominated for Academy Award a few times and is now 85 years old. Mm-hmm. And she was a real trooper. She kept complaining that she didn't have the script long enough. She said, usually I have the script a month before and I can learn all the lines. And, we had it rewritten for the production, and she didn't get it that much before, so she was nervous about her lines, and she rewrote. Sometimes she would rewrite. I'd rather say it this way, and I'd read it. So that's fine. That's fine, Piper. That's fine. But she was actually a fisherwoman, which was amazing. She had been married to a man named Joe, which was the same, because the character is a fisherwoman married to a man named Joe. And she actually had an adopted daughter. So it was kind of freaky how perfect this character was for her.
Yeah.
But she did great. We were shooting in a bad heat a couple summers ago out here in L.A. And it was, I was struggling, and she was a good 20 years older than me, and it was rough on everybody.
Yeah. Well, that's it's interesting. I'm thinking about occupations of people in movies, and it's certainly the thing with the fish and the nautical aspect of Snapshots. And I'm also thinking about you as a photographer in Girlfriends and the Brownie Camera. And I'm wondering, was that Claudia? Was Vicky Claudia Weil? Did they purposely utilize that aspect of your life, or was that not connected?
That was just a coincidence. I was like, every actor has to have something to bring in money, because the problem is the acting jobs are few and far between sometimes, and so I was taking actors' headshots for extra money. I still do it. If somebody needs photos, I'll do them.
Wow.
But I was doing it then, and so when I went up for the part of Susan Weinblatt in Girlfriends, it was just a coincidence. I knew how to work the camera and everything, so that was kind of fun. And actually, when I got in 30-something, they did not know what Melissa did, and I suggested she be a photographer because that way I thought with the ad agency that Michael and Elliot had, maybe my character could be worked into more storylines if I was a photographer, because they could hire me. So here I am, not only happy to be hired in a TV show, but trying to get my character hired as well.
Well, it's funny. You read my mind, because I was going to mention Just Next 30-something and photography. And I don't know whether all that's coincidence, or it was your idea, I guess, in 30-something.
It was my idea.
Which is fantastic.
I was trying to get Melissa hired in more episodes.
Yeah. Well, that's important. I just think, do you mind talking a little bit about the impact of 30-something, or its iconic? You were in that show for a long time, right? It was a long running.
Show, you know what? Everybody says that, and you know how long the show ran? 4 seasons.
4?
We never even got to syndication.
Oh.
Syndication is when the show hits 100 episodes, and then the network or the studio that owned the show can sell it, and then people can watch it in reruns for years afterwards or whatever. And we never hit the 100. We had 88 episodes. We never hit 100. So the show was only rerun once on Lifetime in the 30 years since we finished. It only reran once, so let's put it this way: it was never a cash cow for any of the actors after that. But it was 4 years, and the impact on people is like it was on for 10. It's crazy.
Yeah, what do you attribute that to? Like, even I in this podcast made the mistake of thinking it was more seasons, or misremembering. I guess part of it is that it's a really good show. But it might be something more than that, or in addition to that. I don't. And what do you think about?
It's the writing. It's out on DVD. You can get it on DVD. I bought all of them. Is it Shine? I have to look it up. The company that's releasing it, or that did it. But I was showing it to my daughter, who's 21, and she watched the first few episodes, and she got really into it because even though we have shoulder pads and big hair and, the size of pleated pants and suspenders, and we're total 80s fashion,
Mm-hmm.
The writing is completely universal, and
Yep.
and it still resonates,
Yep.
because the show wasn't like a medical show, the disease of the week. It wasn't the crime of the week. It wasn't it was just about the minutia of life.
Mm-hmm.
It was just about stuff that happens as you get through your day.
Yes.
And it's like the little battles, the little victories, the little problems, the things
Mm-hmm.
that wouldn't even warrant probably anybody ever even thinking to write about it,
Mm.
And that's what really resonated with people.
Yeah.
It was just about that, about us, about
Sure.
how we deal
Well,
with
I guess
everything.
maybe that's the connection I was trying to go after when I talked about Mazursky, because that's kind of
Right.
what he was doing in his films, wouldn't you say?
He did that with his film totally.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I just think that I think that might be what it is. Well, he was kind of explicit about it in interviews, right? Like he would boast that I make my films about ordinary people, or more my movies about.
Oh, that's interesting. Well, then he was doing it. Bloom and Love, all his movies. God, I watched them all before doing Harry and Tonto, and it was exactly like that.
Yeah.
The same. Snapshots is like that too. It's
Totally
just a
like
people
that.
movie.
Yeah, and that's really something. I'm really happy that a movie like Snapshots got made, and that it's out in the world.
Yeah, we didn't get the big festivals. We didn't get in Tribeca, Toronto, Sundance, because apparently all those festivals, we were such a low-ball little movie. I just mean low-ball in terms of the budget. We didn't have a big agency behind us. We didn't have a big anything behind us. And it's a shame because it's a wonderful film, but we did play a lot of festivals, just not the biggest ones. Yeah. And we did get distribution. And, times are different now anyway, than they were years ago when you release a movie. Now we've got streaming, the movie can live and keep getting seen. And But the film festivals, it was great to see the movie with an audience and see it in a theater and hear them laughing. And then when it gets really emotional, you hear people sniffling and you can hear it.
I guess there's nothing like that, right? I guess if you're a film director, you made a film and you can experience that at a premiere. I guess there's nothing else like that, right? That experience.
No. So doing a little bit of the festival circuit, sort of traveling around and doing Q&As after the words with some of the actors and hearing what people say about it and stuff. It's fantastic. It was really, really special.
And you're part of this revolution in streaming, which I think is the next thing, like the novel or like movies in theaters. I think that's where it's at now, right? And you're right in there with Gracie and Frankie and Glow and Jane the Virgin. That's do you mind? What comes to your mind when I say Gracie and Frankie, or
Grace and Frankie? Actually, Grace and Frankie. We're thinking of. But what comes to mind? Lily Tomlin and Jane Fonda, who I both knew years ago. I co-starred in a special of Lily's.
Lily sells out.
Lily sold out.
Sold
it was
out.
So
That's
funny.
Right.
I played Harriet Van Dam on the strip. I was a news reporter that kept busting her and catching up with Lily. But it was great to work with Lily twice, and Jane I had crossed paths with over the years. I actually, when I was 23, acted in a movie with Henry Fonda, with her father, called the Great Smoky Roadblock. And I knew her stepmother, Shirley Fonda, and it was kind of funny that way. And Peter Fonda's daughter had graduated at NYU the year my sister graduated. And I remember my family, we were all in Washington Square Park where the graduation was. And Peter Fonda and his family were just like 6 feet away from us. And I remember, oh my God, there's Peter Fonda. So I said to Jane, I've crossed paths with your whole family.
Yeah. Well, she comes from She's part of
a... Melanie, direct me. Direct me. I love direction. You know, they were both so open to, you know, whatever I had to say, whatever I wanted to chime in with. There wasn't much. I mean, they're both such gifted people and actors.
I was wondering about that. I would imagine that's fairly scripted and planned. That series.
It's all scripted and planned.
But I'm wondering. You could probably tell me. I'm wondering what they do with that, because you never know. But there's a lot of different ways to play a scene, and I guess that's the part that's not planned, right? That's not on the page, necessarily, right?
Yeah, but they're, they know. I came in the second season. They know their characters. They've been playing it week to week, and it's just whatever the episode is about. You can get into the comedy and how they're relating and what they're doing, and when you're directing television, you don't have as much time as you do in a movie. Mm-hmm. Now, a movie like Snapshots, I didn't have much time because it was so low budget. We had way less time. Mm-hmm. We actually had the same amount of time. We had 15 days. That's like if it was a 90-minute film, mm-hmm. and most of the TV shows are about 41, 42 minutes, shot in 7 or 8 days. So it was about the speed of it, doing 2 TV episodes back to back. But most movies will go on for a few months, and mm-hmm. there's more time to find the performances and have some rehearsal time. Yeah. But with episodic directing for television, you don't. You, as a director, have to have already pre-visualized mm-hmm. where they're sitting or standing, or what door somebody comes in, what line somebody should get up and walk over to here, or get the drink of water and come back. Or you have to come up with all the behavior. Mm-hmm. And just tell the actors where you want them and what you want them to do. Now, if they say, I wouldn't get up on that line, I might get up on this line, okay, fine. Or they might say, I wouldn't get up, I would just sit here. You say, okay. Or they might say, I wouldn't sit, I would be standing, and I would be over here. You go, okay, you change it. But you pretty much have to have a plan going in. Because you don't have any time to find it.
That's really fascinating. So what you're saying is that it is heavily sort of, as you would say, storyboarded or geometrically planned. But at the same time, you're open to an actor speaking their truth or saying, may I change this or that at the same time.
Well, to some degree. Yeah. You might not. You might have to convince them based on your camera moves or mm-hmm. your camera, based on your shots, to do it the way you figured it out, because you might have worked out a really cool shot, and if they want to do it their way, your cool shot goes out the window. So, but obviously, look, I'm an actor, and I know whenever I chimed up about something, it felt right to me, or it's, I'm always going to, as an actor, being a director, I'm always going to respect what they want to say.
Sure.
And try to accommodate them, if I can. If I don't agree with them, I'll try to convince them to do the way I want it.
You mean do it the right way, or the more, the whatever.
Well, or do it the way that I might have worked out for how I was going to photograph it,
Yeah. Do you mind going into your memory bank and recalling a time when you made a kind of a change like that, and there was any production or any, I know there's probably...
I know on Girlfriends, there were 2 times that made me think I could be a director. One of them was I was 23. We were on Girlfriends. They were trying to do a shot where my roommate is in the hallway and she's outside a door to the bathroom that's ajar, mm-hmm. and I'm inside the little powder room, and it was literally just a toilet and sink. Mm-hmm. And Claudia wanted me sitting on the toilet, and the girl outside in the hallway, and she was trying to somehow get us both in the shot. Mm-hmm. And she was outside in the hallway with the director of photography, and they were talking about how could they do it. And I was sitting on the toilet, not going to pee, just sitting on the closed seat. And I looked at the door was to my left if I'm sitting on the toilet, and to the right was the sink and a little medicine chest above it. And the window was like directly across from me. Mm-hmm. And the medicine chest had a mirror, and it was a little bit open, and I got up and I moved the medicine chest door a little bit until I could see Claudia and Fred, the director of photography, in the hallway, in the mirror. And I said, hey, guys. And then I sat back down on the toilet. I said, can you see me?
Mm.
And they looked in the mirror through the crack in the door, and they went, yeah. And I went, well, isn't that your shot?
Hmm.
Do you know what I mean? Where they would be outside with the girl in the foreground, looking through the crack at the mirror, and then they would see me reflected from the right on the toilet. And they were like, yeah, oh my God, that's it. Oh my God, thank you so much. That's the shot. And I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. I figured that out for them.
Well, that was the beginning for you. That's you directing. You're starting to do it, right?
Yeah, I found a shot. And I heard what you wanted to do, and I found it. And I remember I'm telling you this now, 40 years later or whatever. I remember going, wow, that's kind of cool. So then, a couple of years later, I'm in Mexico City on the set of Missing, and they had just finished this scene where Jack Lemmon and Sissy Spacek have walked into a morgue, and there's bodies all on the ground, and they look up, and there's a glass floor ceiling, or a glass ceiling, and you see the shape or the silhouette of all these bodies on that in the ceiling. It was a really freaky, scary, sad scene. Yeah. Anyway, they had shot the scene, and they're moving all the equipment out. And at the time, I had the little Polaroid SX70 camera, the ones that folded down, and you could fold it up and take a picture, and the film shoots out. And people were doing like Polaroid art, as it's developing, as the picture is appearing, you could rub a pen on it or a pencil and affect the emulsion and make these cool little images. Anyway, so I was shooting a lot with the Polaroid SX70, and I went in as they were moving everything out, and I shot a picture, and I went up to Costa. Wow. He was standing there, and I showed it to him, and he looked at it, and he went, Mel. He said, Mel, when did you shoot this? When were you standing? And I said, I was standing, and I pointed to the opposite side of the room where he had the camera. It's the opposite corner. So I shot it there. Why? And he went, Mel. He said, Mel, that is a much better angle than what I picked. And I was like, oh, wow, okay, that's cool. He was mad. You know what mad means in French. Yeah. And he was pissed off. He liked what I had picked. So that was the second time I went, wow, and that's Costa Gavras. So it was just a little kind of
that's a great story. I mean, that story is wow. I mean, that gets me to think, different directors have different personalities, right? So I would think Costa Gavras is probably, I don't know, I'm thinking of Joe Sargent and different in Greenwald. You work with Robert Greenwald on the Katie Portrait of a Centerfold.
And you know who else I worked with? Herb Ross.
Herbert Ross
on My Blue Heavens.
Yes, that's right.
That was written by Nora Ephron.
Yes. Thanks for reminding me about that. That's a wonderful film. I don't know whether you've done so much stuff that I have to. I was thinking.
And then there's Sticky Fingers. Now, Sticky Fingers, my writing partner, Caitlin Adams, who was the pink and purple motorcycle stunt woman in The Jerk, Steve Martin's first film. Caitlin and I wrote a movie called Sticky Fingers, and she directed it. We produced it. I starred in it opposite Helen Slater, and Demetra Vance was in it, Loretta Devine, Eileen Brennan, Carol Kane, and Christopher Guest, who played my boyfriend. Christopher also played my boyfriend in Girlfriends.
Yeah.
And he also played my boyfriend in a movie that Alan Arkus directed called Heartbeeps.
I love Heartbeeps.
Andy Kaufman and Bernadette Peters.
Heartbeeps is one of the great. I love Alan Arkus. Well, yeah. So you just named some. That's a pretty diverse group of directors. I mean, I would imagine that Alan Arkush is very different than Herbert Ross is different from working on Heartbeeps. But I Sticky Fingers. What do you? Is that available now? I'm just wondering.
Yeah, it's on Amazon. You can watch it on Amazon.
Excellent.
And that was a movie in the it came out in '88. It's a shopping comedy.
Mm-hmm.
Catlin and I, it was our first. We wrote it. She directed it. We produced it. I got to star in it with Helen, and we cast it. And it was really my. Well, Catlin and I had also done a short called Little Shiny Shoes that I starred in that we wrote and produced and paid for, and she directed. So it was our way of getting into being filmmakers. So it's been I've done a little bit of everything, which is the really exciting thing about this part of the business.
Well, now
Catlin had gone to AFI, and she used to say it's the most expensive habit in the world because it was film. You had to shoot on film. It had to be developed.
Oh, yeah.
But now people are making movies with their iPhones, or their smartphones. Now you don't need all that money, and you can do it and edit it on a laptop. I mean, you can really.
Do you see that as a kind of a progress in a certain? I mean, at least.
Well, yeah, because so many more people can really do their art. I mean, in the 70s and 80s, if you wanted to make something, you'd have to maybe to be a nonprofit. You'd have to spend a lot of money just to do a little. I mean, Little Shiny Shoes cost us $22,000, shot on 16, and it was only like a 10-minute film. It doesn't bring you any money back. It just makes you have the experience. That was kind of like my film school, making that movie. That was me learning really the other side of being on a set, was the pre-production and post and looking at cuts and writing something and, Catlin directing it, but me being there watching the process. So it's all very exciting. I just spoke to some last week, these young filmmakers that are in a program that HBO Max is sponsoring, and every one of them, there were about 15 of them that I talked to, and we had a Q&A, and I talked about my career and my process and stuff, and they were all so gifted. I mean, these guys were so talented. Mm-hmm. And I've been watching some of their shorts, and their films are terrific, but see, now they can do them. I mean, people can sort of make stuff now because it's not all, you can buy a couple cameras, you can buy things, cut them on the computer, cut them at home, It just doesn't cost like what it did 30, 40 years ago, which is a good thing because people can do their art.
It's a wonderful thing. I mean, one of the themes of our podcast is about making things. And I think we had a tagline that this podcast is about the people who make stuff. And that anything that makes that easier.
And just the fact that we can do a podcast. I mean, that you didn't have to be on a network with your own talk show. And I mean, how many people does that happen to?
That's true.
And you can just do this because you want to do it. And you network and you meet people and you get people on your show. I mean, that's kind of what I'm talking about. It's like more people can do what they want now.
Yeah, that's true. It's interesting. What do you, before I forget, I have written down on this notepad, the name of Valerie Harper. I think because you were in Rhoda, and I just wondering if you have any memories of things connected with that show or any.
Oh, Valerie was, she was just such a big heart and such a talent and such a funny woman. Mm-hmm. There was one night, and she, I was playing Julie Kavner's best friend, right? Sandy,
That's right.
Yep. And it was just, I was like, it was a funny character because I was just like, we were like three peas in a pod,
Yep.
But there was one night when we were recording it or taping it in front of the audience, and Valerie and Julie and I were standing like three ways, like a triangle, right? Mm-hmm. And we got the giggles. Valerie got the giggles. She could not. She said a line and she started giggling, and then Julie started laughing, and then I started laughing, and we couldn't stop.
Yeah.
And then Valerie was like, "Sorry, folks," or whatever, and she'd like say the line again and start laughing again. And it was like none of us could stop. It was like when you get the giggles and you just forget it. It was just one of those weird moments. And, the pressure is on. You have to get it together because you have to finish the scene, and they've got to get it shot. And we just couldn't. Yeah. We just couldn't stop laughing. But she used to joke about my hair. She said, "It's so big. Look at your big hair."
Oh, you mean and that would have been. So she was. Well, I love your hair in that period. I think it was fantastic. But I guess it's not. I guess it's not really for. I mean, it wasn't. She thought it was. Was she just more conservative, or just kind of? I don't know.
No, she loved it.
She loved it.
Yeah, she thought it was great. Yeah,
I mean that's in the context of like network television, though. So at that time,
right.
So
right.
I guess your hair had to fit. I guess the part you were playing, if you were a bank teller, or if you were a messenger, had a telegram service or whatever the character was, you had to. I guess there's specifications that you have to.
Right. Oh man.
Yeah, it's a. What?
Yeah, and I here's one little tidbit. Wendy Wasserstein's play, Sisters Rosenzweig.
I love that play.
I did the reading before they did the play, and it was at Lincoln Center.
Yep.
And I was the youngest sister. The middle sister was Madeline Kahn, and the oldest sister was Mary Tyler Moore.
Oh wow!
Can you believe it? That I just couldn't get over that.
Were you able to sort of at all hang out with Mary Tyler Moore and Madeline Kahn or were you at all?
Well, we spoke and we talked and but then Catlin, we wrote a movie. We wrote an after-school special that Catlin directed called "Wanted: The Perfect Guy," and Madeline Kahn played the single mother. She played the single mother of a 12-year-old boy named Ben Affleck who came from Boston. And so Catlin cast Ben in his first thing. So we know Ben since when he was 12. And other people I've discovered, John Hamm I cast in his first role in television on a show called Providence. And he did a podcast a few years ago and spoke about me, how I'd cast him in his first job and was helping him through a complicated scene. And I cast Edie Falco in her first TV job on New York Undercover, and also Taye Diggs on New York Undercover. So I feel like I've got a good eye.
Obviously you do. Obviously,
I found some good ones.
I know that John Hamm has already discussed that, but what do you mind going a little bit into what the difficulty was, or what you helped?
Well, he had to play. He played a bartender who then, in a Halloween party at the bar later, is Zorro, and he's like, and the girl, the sister in Providence, I think, sort of liked talking to the bartender and got a little bit of a crush on him, but then he finds her now dressed as Zorro, and she's dressed up at the Halloween party. There's a little bit of a thing, and so it was the moment where he's at Zorro now, and he's walking through this crowd on the dance floor trying to find her, and it was a Steadicam shot where the Steadicam the operator had to move backwards holding the camera, and the crowd had to be like tight in front of the lens but part so that the camera guy could move through them, right? So it was tricky to stage it where nobody would bump the camera on the cameraman as he's walking back. And John had to stop at certain points and put his hand out right towards the lens and say a line and then keep moving. So there were marked places where he had to walk that were marked on the floor, and where he had to stop and talk. And it was all one long shot.
Wow.
So he kept walking and then looking down at the floor where his mark was, and then looking back up towards the camera and saying his line. And I was like, God, you can't look can't look down at the floor. You can't look for, they call them marks. I said, you can't look for your marks. You have to just kind of keep your eye up near the lens, but maybe sort of with peripheral vision, try to see it at the bottom, but keep your eyes up. And he was having a little bit of trouble, so I had to keep talking him through it. So it took us a little bit of time. I mean, I know we became a pro at all that later.
Yeah, I was just gonna say for those of you listening that every time a listener says I can't do that, or tells yourself I'm not good at something, remember this story. John Hamm, he became a master at all that on show. So it's right.
Yes, of course he did. So, and he's a wonderful director. I've been rewatching Mad Men with my daughter every night. And last night we watched an episode he directed. Yeah, he's terrific.
Yeah. So,
but we all got to start somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, there's you have to crawl before you walk, or before you.
Yeah.
But you were instrumental, I guess, in getting him to figure that stuff out, right? And sort of, kind of.
Well, he knew me for 30-something, and he trusted me, so.
Yeah.
And I just explained to him everything, I explained what he had to do.
Yeah.
It's a little different. Being in front of a camera, marks and all that stuff, is a lot different than being on stage.
Oh, yeah.
So it's a whole other acting technique, kind of.
Do you mind discussing those differences briefly? I mean, because I know that I often hear people talk about how it's just two totally different things. But let's put
it this way: the camera sees you think. You can just not do anything with your face and think, "Boy, I really have to go to the bathroom. How long can I hold it?"
Yeah.
And the camera will see that you're very upset or concerned about something. You're very worried about something. So whatever you're thinking, the camera will pick up on if the camera is close, if it's a close-up. The thing about theater is you're watching a proscenium and you're watching actors move within a big frame. And, you're not right up there in front of their face. You see their whole body. So let's say two people are sitting across from each other at a table. In a movie, if you had the camera on, let's say, a close-up of my face, and I'm looking down at the table, and then all I do is look up at the person, that would be very strong in a close-up. Now, if you were on stage and two people were across from each other at a table, and I'm looking down at the table, and then we're sitting, and I jump up on my feet and look at them and maybe slap my hand on the table, right? That would have the same effect as just the close-up of my eyes looking down and then just looking up at them. Does that make sense? So in the theater, you've got your whole body to use to impart whatever it is. And in film, depending on how much of your body they see in a shot, you can do as much or as little as need be. Because if the camera's right in your face and you're acting like you were on stage, it would come out like you were mugging or you were overacting.
Yes.
Or you were acting too big. So...
Well, I guess in your experience, you know how to go back and forth with real flexibility between those two modes or those two approaches, I would think.
It's like changing channels, It's like... in theater, you have to project. You have to talk real loud, right, so that they hear you. Even if there are mics on stage, you still have to talk louder than you would. You could be right next to, your lover in the play, and you're doing a love scene, but you have to talk really loud, which is unnatural, because if you were that close in real life, you would barely be giving much volume at all, But you'd have to be really projecting, if you were on stage, which always feels a little unnatural. Now, that's going back to Rhoda. I remember Valerie said that to me because that was the weird thing about acting in a situation comedy. Yeah. Because they shoot it that you have an audience and you're on a stage, and it's kind of like theater. You have to talk louder because the mics are way, way up high because they're shooting 3 shots at once. Somebody's on a close-up, and somebody's on a medium shot, and somebody's on a big wide shot where they see you all head to toe. So for the wide shot, they can't have the microphone be right over your head like they would if you were shooting a single camera show where the mic would go just out of frame according to how big or how tight the shot was. But with that situation comedy, Valerie said to me, you have to talk loud like you're in theater, but you have to act smaller like you're doing a movie. I was like, what? I can either be big or I can be small. You're telling me to do a little bit of both. And
She's telling you to do both, but somehow you grasped whatever that was. I guess you started doing both.
Well, yeah, but it was kind of hard because it was a little more unnatural. I mean, if there's cameras and set's quiet and there's microphones, you can be very intimate. You can act how you would just in real life, kind of. You know what I mean? Yeah. But in the theater, it's unnatural to be close and be almost screaming, projecting, talking really loud. That's different. And situation comedy was kind of like a combo. It was, remember, it threw me when she said that.
That's so interesting because I remember you directed an episode of 90210, the new reboot, the table read.
I did a couple of them. Yeah,
I did a couple of them. And I was so disappointed that was canceled. But putting my comments.
Oh no! Wait, the reboot. No, the reboot. I did one. Yeah, the one that was just on last season.
Yeah.
I did two of another 90210 reboot years ago. There was another one, but this one was canceled. Well, it was an interesting premise. They wanted to do the behind the scenes of the making
I liked
of the show. Yeah, did you? Good.
I thought it was good, but I bring that up as an illustration because you mentioned something earlier about the speed of television, and I guess streaming television. You're saying it's very quick. Because of time and time constraints, but I have to say that as a perspective of an audience member, when I'm watching that episode or when I'm watching, like, say, Glow and with Mike Mayron and Allison Brie, or whomever, it doesn't feel rushed to me. Like you don't get the sense that you're watching something.
Well, they're not. Look, the actors. Nobody's rushing the work.
Right.
It's just that you don't have that much. What was Glow? It might have been 8 or 9 days. Yeah. That there was enough time to do it. It's just that, let's say, as the director, the schedule is on your shoulders. When you're acting, you have to know all your lines, wear your costume, and really try to hit all the emotional beats, right, of the scene. And that's all you're concerned about. And of course, you're usually shooting your performance out of order, so you're kind of gauging where you are in the story and making sure, because that's out of order, that's tricky. But when you're directing, you've got how many scenes you have to do that day and making sure you get them in 12 hours. So it's sort of like
it's like a deadline, right? And the deadline's the framework that you work in, right? Would that be
but it's like it's going to look bad if you don't make your day, if you don't get all your scenes done. The producers aren't going to have you back because you weren't professional, you didn't do it. So there's a lot of responsibility as the director, not only to make sure the actors are giving you what you want and make sure that, you have interesting photography and good shots and, all that the story's working well and you're getting the comedy or you're getting the drama. But the nuts and bolts of it is, did you get it all done on time?
Yeah.
And it's bad if you didn't.
Right.
So you've got more responsibility when you're the director.
Well, when you think about all these different things you've been involved in, from stage and television, streaming television, feature films, I would think that for you, do you have a preference of one or the other? Or are they all the same art? Is it all the same artistic practice to you, or the same?
Well, they're all different. I mean, one good thing about I like acting, film, and TV because with theater, you have to learn everything from beginning to end. There was a movie called Crossing Delancey.
Love that
and
movie.
I was in the off-Broadway production of Crossing Delancey, and the playwright had seen Girlfriends and had actually written it for me.
Yep.
That's wild, and I was supposed to do the movie, but then wound up not getting cast in it. But when I did Crossing Delancey, it was a 2-hour play, straight through, and I had a whole lot of monologues in it. And that was a lot of work. It was a lot of memorization, and it was tough. You can't, you're in the theater and it's mostly you and a few other actors, but when you have a lot of lines and stuff or a lot of monologues, if you forget something, it's just it's a lot of pressure. So, there's a lot of pressure in theater.
There is a lot. I believe I saw that production. Was that in
in New York?
Yeah, I saw that production. I saw that.
You're
production.
kidding.
Yeah, no. See,
Oh my God.
I'm from Manhattan. I was born in Manhattan, so I saw a lot of the productions that came through before my family moved to Florida, which was a long time ago. I saw basically everything that came through in the 70s to early 80s.
Wow.
So a lot of the spirit of this podcast is actually my experience of, having experienced all that diversity of art and all those performances.
Yeah, incredible.
So I wanted to sort of, in a way, give back, or wanted to sort of, kind of honor how things are made and, and the nature of producing. So that's one of the productions I saw. But I mean, that's interesting. So it's it was written for you, and it I guess goes to Amy Irving. I don't know what.
Yeah, that's what happened. That was the one that got away. Boy, if there was ever something that I was sick about.
Oh.
I really wanted to play that. I couldn't believe I didn't get that. That happened.
It was written for you, right?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
There used to be a saying going around. Let me see if I can remember. It was like the 4 stages of an actor.
Okay.
Melanie Mayron, who? Get me Melanie Mayron.
Yeah.
Get me a young Melanie Mayron.
Oh.
Melanie Mayron, who?
Well.
Oh my God! I heard that like 50 years ago.
Yeah.
And I think it's still true.
You don't think it's changing now? No.
No.
Mm.
Well, maybe with the internet and streaming and shows can we can watch somebody from a long time ago at the drop of a hat now. So maybe that's not true anymore.
Yeah, like on our podcast, I could say go and see Snapshots, go see Sticky Fingers.
That's right. I'm saying Amazon,
yeah.
Playing for Time, Netflix.
Playing for Time, which I haven't thought about in so long. That came out in 78, right? 78, 79?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
79, I think.
79.
No, wait, hold on. Playing for Time came out in... we shot it in 79 or 80. It was right around there. And then Missing came out in 82.
Yep.
Sticky Fingers came out in 88.
Yep.
God. Where did the time go?
I don't know. It's interesting, isn't it? All that.
And now I have a skincare business.
You do?
Yeah, Mayron's Goods and Supply.
Do you mind talking about that? That's fantastic.
No, I would love to. My father is a brilliant chemist. He's got a patent from 1963 on the time-release tablet. Okay. Only 3 chemists in the country came up with that system. So like when you take Claritin or Sudafed or, you take something and it's 24-hour or it's 12-hour, the system that releases the medicine over time, there are 3 different ways it happens, and my dad figured out one of them. Of course, he was paid $1 for that because he worked at a company. And so the company owned all the chemists, what they figured out. But he's a very, very amazing, brilliant guy, and he's 93, sharp as a tack, and we've got all these amazing products.
Well, we got to direct the listener to this. So what? Tell people.
It's mayronsgoods.com.
Okay.
GQ has written up our creams for men, our anti-chafe cream for men called Junk, and there's one also for women called Privates. We have an amazing hand cream and foot cream. We have body oil and chapsticks and face oil and a lot of good soap. We've got incredible stuff, and everything is pre-shave and beard hydrating oil called Man Oil. Everything is formulated with a healing element to it because my father was a medic in the Army. So unlike most skincare, it's all natural, organic ingredients, and there's a healing thing to them all. So they're very special products. Mitch, you'll you'll email me your address. I'll send you some stuff.
Oh, I want to become a customer, but yeah, I mean, I want to. Yes, so that's wow. That's a whole other topic. I didn't know we would end up discussing that.
Yeah, well, we cover everything.
We covered everything, including
private parts. I started with a baby line. Let's put it this way: I have an incredible diaper cream and baby wash and lotion, and we've got sunblock. And then I went to adult, so it's kind of like, whatever you are, whatever age you are, we've got you covered.
Yeah. Well, Melanie Mayron, all good things come to an end, and this has been this has been a real treat to discuss some of the technical details of all these things. I mean, I just really I learned a lot, and I want to say, before I say goodbye, I want to ask you, is there anything you want to mention that we haven't covered, or anything that's on your mind that you want to put out there into the world, or say about anything?
Well, gosh, we're all in a heck of a time right now with COVID. Mm-hmm. And I guess just for everybody to take care of themselves and stay safe and try to stay sane. I mean, this has been an amazing opportunity to talk with you, Mitch, and everybody, and just share some of my life and my experiences. It's been great.
Thank you so much. It means a lot to me. And one of these days I'll finish that 70s book, and you're gonna
yeah. And if you want any input on it, let me know.
Oh, absolutely. That's a whole other topic that we'll turn to another time.
Yeah.
But thank you so much.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you so much, and I learned a lot. And you're one of you're the real deal, as they used to say. So.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay.
Be safe.
Okay. Bye.